So let's start this video off in a nice, comfortable, relaxing, gradual way. Talk to Afro Thunder here. Gigantic nails pierce the ground. Provide some nice acupuncture for the earth. A sky toilet forms and poops out some enemies. Blood-curdling scream in 3, 2, 1. Just, my goodness. That is the most terrifying scream, and the most terrified scream, and the most terrible scream, and everything else that starts with Terra, including the name Terra and also terabytes. Just strangely realistic scream. I guess Link has some pretty realistic screams sometimes, but none of them compare to that. Whoever the actress or female voice actor, I guess, is what is the preferred term nowadays. Like, whoever did that should be awarded 10 Oscars. And none of them should be related to acting. She should just get 10 Oscars for no reason. I think it's time to use some bomb arrows. Which are even more awesome than the ones in Link's Awakening, which probably weren't intentional, but they could have been, who knows. It will never be revealed. This shot right here of Link with his hair lightly waving in the wind and just looking over his shoulder like that, it is such a hardcore, awesome pose. If you can call it a pose. Or if you can call the pose in this game pose. Just, to me, that is possibly unintentionally the second most dramatic shot of Link in the game, the first of which being the very obviously dramatic shot of Link with, after having saved Colin whenever he has Epona and there's the light that shines behind them on the bridge and everything. That's so ridiculously overdramatic that it should be at the end of the game, but it's not, that sort of thing. That is my second place for most dramatic shot. And it's so, whatever the word for it is, there's no fanfare, it's just there. Incidental? That's not the right word. Oh yeah, this is the music that I mentioned earlier. That was remixed in Skyward Sword for the Target minigame. The Super Target minigame. Mario Goes Shopping, or whatever that game is called. Mario Shopping Cart. I'm trying to think of the preloader game before Decline of Video Gaming 2, where you play as Mario and Luigi, or Diddy Kong and Donkey Kong, and try to get a whole bunch of mushrooms in the store. He shells, seashells, she sells by the store. Man, watching stuff on the internet used to be more interesting. Because now we just have videos that buffer, and then you have a thing at the bottom where you can cut to any time in the video, or maybe add captions sometimes, but you know, you used to have stuff like you could roll over certain things in the movie and they would change into something different, and there were more Easter eggs that were not so, like, they didn't pause the experience so dramatically if you... Oh yeah, gotta go down the waterfall backwards. Entirely necessary to go down the waterfall backwards. Anyways, I just miss the days of Flash when it was more popular. Because movies were so much more interactive than they are now. Or like, online movies. Videos. Etc. So we have a bomb bag, which apparently is an indication of how stingy Isa is. I'm not sure how, and also how is that boat moving. Just kind of has a mind of its own, like how the ship in Return to Dreamland has a brain of its own. It just goes up the waterfall. Yeah, that makes sense. That's fine. I love that. It's not even in a cutscene that it goes up the waterfall, it just does. So you have to look at it specifically to know that that happens, but it does happen. No fanfare for it at all. I keep saying fanfare, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for. Oh well. Yeah, it just goes up the waterfall like Glubbox does in Rayman 3, which is a game that I think I've only played about half of, and that was good enough for me. I didn't really see much of a purpose in playing more of it. Rayman 2 is still my favorite of the Raymans before he became full-fledged 2D in Rayman Origins and Legends. I know the first Rayman was 2D, but, like, it seems like that's the focus now. I used to really like Rayman Origins. Legends not as much. I still probably do really like Origins, but I just haven't played it in a long time. I think Rayman 2 is probably my favorite. Has the most personality, it's the most, maybe not personality. I don't know, it feels the most like an adventure to me. And you know how I am about adventure in video games, I like that feeling of adventure. Because adventure is out there! And now we are holding a cock. Anyways, well that's making me think now. This is sort of something I wanted to talk about, even though there's really no place for this kind of conversation in a playthrough of Twilight Princess, but I already talked about, what was it, just the presidency in Snow Peak Temple, so this isn't exactly anything totally out of the ordinary. But in recent times, it's been kind of strange. There's been this trend of comedians saying something offensive or doing something offensive, a whole bunch of people getting angry saying, oh man, you need to get fired, and then the comedian apologizes afterwards. That's happened at least 3 times that I know of recently. The first time was Stephen Colbert making a joke about Trump and Putin, and I don't know exactly what the joke was, but it involved the phrase cock holster, which that's what I thought about with the cock holder thing that I said earlier. And people said that joke was, like, homophobic for some reason, which I don't know how, but sure. Then there was the Kathy Griffin thing, where Kathy Griffin participated in a photo shoot where she was holding up the decapitated head of Donald Trump. Yeah, that's 2 Trump things in a row. And then there's, Bill Maher recently used the N-word in an interview, making a joke about how, like, he didn't need to work in a specific field, like a career field, I think, but it was like, you know, slavery, working in the fields, that was the joke. And I can understand definitely how people would be offended by all of those things, because they are offensive jokes. I don't really have much to comment on about how offensive they are or aren't. All that I'm concerned about is Kathy Griffin's, what she did, to me, was the worst out of the bunch, because it's the most difficult to... Well, it's the easiest to misconstrue what she did as something other than a joke. Because just having a photo shoot where you're holding the bloody head of the president with a stern expression on your face, that by itself doesn't really constitute as a joke. Even if she's a comedian, like, without any other additional context, that really fails at the structure of a joke. There's nothing inherently funny about it. There's not really... Even if it is exaggerated, it's not clear exaggeration. It's not like, man, I was in a traffic jam for 4 days. You know, that could be considered funny because, well, there's no way that you were in a traffic jam for 4 days. But if you said, man, I was in a traffic jam for 2 hours and you were really only in a traffic jam for 3 minutes, then that would be much more realistic and people wouldn't think of it as a joke. That's kind of my thought process there, like... Well... Oh, yeah, I have to show this off. By the way, I did the editing for this before I commentated this time. So hopefully there will be a little bit better flow this time than other times. Let's drink this magnificent soup that he so lovingly prepared. Death. And now we're suddenly in the Forest Temple. Okay, maybe the flow thing that I mentioned is not going to be as prevalent as I thought, but I'm going back and getting heart pieces and stuff. Is basically what this is. Heart pieces and things where I forgot about them. I guess to finish my thought from earlier, like, what Stephen Colbert said and what Bill Maher said, I think both of those things might not necessarily be funny, but there is at least something about them that makes them jokes, and you could see how they could potentially be funny by some strand of logic. I guess, you know, assassination isn't exactly a great thing to joke about anyways, because it could very easily be misinterpreted as a threat. So, really just in general, what Kathy Griffin did was a bad idea. From any way that you slice it, because it is bread. I'm not supposed to have bread, but I had bread just a little while ago. I had a peanut butter and honey sandwich. What I did not have was a peanut butter and banana sandwich, or as I like to pronounce it, a peanut butter and banana sandwich. Which is just the same thing, but all the emphasis on the syllables are opposite. Here's a good heart piece. We just roll over here for a few days. And that is all you have to do. And then immediately after that one, you can get another one, I'm pretty sure. Just go down here. Claw shot for days. Everything is for days. I was in a traffic jam for 4 days. Better joke would have been something like, I was in a traffic jam for so long that flying cars were invented. Yeah, there's another one right there, just 2 heart pieces in close proximity to one another. And now they are both mine. Proximity mine. I think at some point soon I start speeding stuff up, because, you know, this playthrough has gone on over 50 parts, and most of these parts are at least 15 minutes, so might as well make some stuff go a little faster. What's even in this cave? I forgot. Oh yeah, this is just a Cave of Wonders. Not the Cave of Wonders. There are no tiger heads here. It's just a maze that is not really much of a maze. Because there's only a few paths, and it's like the kind of maze that you solve as a child, where you draw a line, and then chances are, even if you drew the line wrong, you'll get to the end. If that didn't make any sense. I remember that my favorite mazes as a kid were the ones where they were like on the back of cereal boxes, and there was lots of detail to them. It was a big environment, and there were like paths that went all directions that were not just a flat line kind of path, but sometimes there were bridges that went over, and some of the paths overlapped, and it was cool. I don't know. Any maze that has overlapping in it is just automatically cooler than other mazes. Like that Flow Bridges game. Except I don't know if Flow Bridges is necessarily more fun than Flow is. I'm talking about those apps on the phones. On the phones. You know, on them GPMs and the badges. Very, very fast wolf. What was the... I was gonna say, like, timber wolf, and then make a joke about it being a nimble wolf, but it wouldn't have worked. So now a screen transition to the exact same place, except it's daytime now, and I'm regular Link. For the record, I made it daytime by going to the City in the Sky for a brief moment and then leaving, because that works. It is definitely... Like, I really wish, still, that there was a way to transition between day and night in this game in a more intuitive way, but I guess this isn't too bad. Now time to, I love Mallow's character. He is the best. Let's get lectured on shooting targets. Super targets. Then there's that one. Not much of a target. I was careful to get this as close as I could the first time. Do better. I assume this is way easier on the GameCube than the Wii. And I just barely got it. Cool. Yeah, I can't imagine what that would be like with motion controls, which there might be a way to turn that off on the Wii. On the Wii version, but... Man, it seems like while there must be certain parts of this game that were designed around the Wii, like I imagine Roll Goal was probably intended for the Wii and its tilt controls, but man, I can't imagine playing it on there. Just, that sounds kind of awful. Then again, I never thought that the Super Mario Galaxy levels with Mario on top of the ball, like Rolling Gizmo Galaxy and all that, were that bad. I thought those were kind of fun. So now we have the Hawkeye, which you get by beating the only little challenge in the game where you would ever actually want to use the Hawkeye. So it's basically useless, but hey, it's kind of cool still. Now we can shoot this far more easily. Zaboomafoo. Darn right I'm awesome, kid. In this episode, we learned how to hit a stick.